welcome back to my channel. Do you like how I just changed my shirt, added a necklace, and reapplied lip gloss? That's right, it's the same day. So last year I did a video that I had so much fun with and I've seen other creators do, and it's the best books that I've read this year according to Goodreads, where I'm gonna sort through my read in 2023 bookshelf and see whether or not I agree with the general opinion of whether or not these books are my best books of 2023. But for this video, I'm also going to add in the worst books of 2023 according to Goodreads. So it's gonna be a reaction style video. I genuinely have no idea how this is going to turn out, but I'm very excited to see. So let's jump on in. So far, I have read 116 books. And if you are new here, I'm doing a challenge in the month of December, the way I almost said October then. In the month of December with Riley's Patreon, where I am reading 30 books in 30 days. So anything could happen throughout this month, but for now, let's look at the reading year so far. So I have my read in 2023 bookshelf up, and I'm going to pop a little window here, or I'm gonna make myself smaller. I'm gonna make myself smaller so that you can react along with me. This is my read in 2023 shelf. A little bit of a spoiler, heads up that there is I read Darcy Coates' entire backlist coming up in this 12 days of bonus videos for me throughout the month of December. But let's sort this by average rating. I'm gonna look at the first 10 of best and worst for the sake of this video, and just so I'm not looking through the entire list. Looking at this list, I am reminded that the mangas and the graphic novels always end up at the top of this list. So I'm gonna exclude them just for the sake of this video. But the one that I will include is Uzumaki, which Uzumaki is technically my top rated book of 2023 so far. I enjoyed Uzumaki. It was such a bizarre book, but I only gave it 3 stars. And in case you missed it, I do have a reading Junji Ito for the first time video. It's called Manga Newbie Reads Junji Ito for the first time. I had so much fun with this video, but you'll know that while Uzumaki was fun, it was not my top book, so I cannot agree with this being my top book of 2023, but I agree that it's a very good book. I just wouldn't put it at 4.44 ratings. I gave it 3 stars. Reckless by Elsie Silver. You can very much see the discrepancy here, that the average rating is 4.41 and I gave this book 2 stars. I really did not like this. I, at times, will go as far to say as I hated it. I just really did not like it. I did not believe the relationship between Theo. I did not believe the relationship between Theo and Winter at all. I was supposed to believe that they were in love, and I did not. And that's all I really have to say about it. I did not like it. I found this underwhelming. But to be fair, I find most of the books in this series underwhelming. Yes, that is the sound of you all unsubscribing at this point. According to this, my next top book, again, not counting mangas and graphic novels, is A Soul to Touch by Opal Rain. This has a 4.38 star rating. I gave it 5 stars, and while I obviously enjoyed it more than the average rating, I would not put this on my best book of 2023 just because I enjoyed this for the smut. I've told people this is a 600-page book, and of those, like almost 700-page book, and of those pages, at least 450 of them are smut. And listen, if you're in the mood for that, that's great. Super fun time. It's a monster romance in the truest sense of the word, monster romance. But it also has a lot of involvement of other fantasy elements, which I think is really interesting. And I enjoyed the world building of this in terms of the more we learned about these creatures, where they come from, their lore, their background of this world, why this exists, and its connection to other universes, which I thought was really interesting. But I cannot say this was my best book of 2023. Oh, look at that. It's another Chestnut Spring series. It's Heartless by Elsie Silver. I enjoyed Heartless the most of the books in this Chestnut Spring series, but it's not the perfect book. It's not my perfect book anyway. It has a 4.38 star rating. I give it 4 stars, so it's about similar to there, but I ultimately find this book really not memorable. And yes, it's a single dad romance, and yes, she's a nanny, but Willa, I think her name is Willa, carries this story on her back The only reason this book was closer to 4-star and not 3 stars is for Willa. Willa is that girl, and I love her. The Twisted Dead by Darcy Coates has an average rating of 4.36. I gave this book 5 stars. You're gonna see my full thoughts on this book in my upcoming rating vlog where I do read Darcy Coates' entire backlist, almost. I did enjoy this. This is Gravekeeper number 3, so it's the 3rd book in this series. And I had a lot of fun with this one, and I'm really excited for the sequel, for where it's gonna go. Because it's the 3rd book in the series, I can't tell you much about it, but just think Ghost Whisperer being hunted by paranormal group. Yours truly by Abby Jimenez, I gave a glowing 5 stars. I am unsurprised to see this as one of my top books of the year according to Goodreads with an average rating of 4.35 stars. I love this book so much. While the ending definitely was wobbly, I loved the representation of a man with anxiety and social anxiety and just him trying to deal with his circumstances and situation, as well as Bree, our main female character, and her trying to find her footing in her life, as well as deal with her brother's illness and trying to take care of him. And this was a really cute romance, but the ending, like I said, with most romances, I think could have used some more fine-tuning. But I still give it 5 stars, and I actually would say this would be on my top books of 2023 list. And it would actually be higher up on the list than some of these other books. Shiver by Junji Ito, I will include, because I did love Shiver, just because I love Shiver. I gave Shiver 4 stars. It has an average rating of 4.34. Shiver is such a bizarre story, but it really does help me find out. It really did help me find out that I do enjoy the way Junji Ito tells certain stories. And I think of all of the mangas that I've read from him so far, I haven't read Tomi yet, but I do really want to. This was really interesting and really strange and really bizarre. And I think it was Model that's in here. What a bizarre concept. Loved it. Part of Your World. Look at that, another Abby Jimenez, another glowing 5 stars from me. It has a 4.32 average rating. I love this. I love this even more than I loved Yours Truly. I think it would be higher up on this list for my best books of 2023. You all know what this is about. Age gap romance, small town, doctor and this mayor. It was such a good time, and I loved their romances, and I loved how much I want to say worshiped the ground she walked on, but that sounds intense. How deeply he loved and cared for her. All right, we have the last 2 books on this list. Secrets in the Dark. The second book in that aforementioned series. I did not personally think this was as strong as the first book and the 3rd book. I enjoyed this, but it felt a little bit scattered and all over the place. And ultimately, I gave this book 3 stars. So no, I don't agree with this being my best book of 2023. The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi is the last book on this list of my top 10 books of 2023, according to Goodreads. Yes, loved this. Loved this. This was such a fun pirate adventure story. Amina Al-Sarafi is that bitch, and you all know how I feel about powerful women in stories. I loved her. I loved her little, if I said what I love, it would be a spoiler. It would be a spoiler. But this is a fantasy. I would say it's almost like very dreamlike in some of its scenes and sequences. It balances the action and the adventure with the coziness really, really well. And I'm so excited for the sequel to this book, which, oh my God, I totally forgot there will be a sequel to this book, and I did not put it on my anticipated 2024 list. How dare I? All right, and those are the 10 best books I've read in 2023 according to Goodreads. So now let's see the worst books that I read this year according to Goodreads. I'm going to tell you, I strongly suspect that I will disagree with. The first book on this list is Stuffed by Sylvia Morrow, a pillow romance, at 2.53 stars. I gave this book 3 stars, but you can see by my laughter, these kinds of stories I associate with the same level as something like the Scary Movie, right? The Scary Movie, literally Scary Movie, is a parody of like every other horror movie before. It's poking fun at it. And for me, these kinds of romances where it's a pillow or a door or a were turkey, it's comedy. It's a parody of monster romances. You're not supposed to go in and think, yeah, this pillow is super sexy and this story is so steamy. I go in to laugh. I like to laugh. And this book did make me laugh. And I also think that it's very impressive when an author is able to make me believe in the romance that is so absurd, so ridiculous, but I'm still somehow rooting for these two to get together. So yes, girl falls in love with her pillow. And yes, I do agree that it is strange. And perhaps I would put this on my worst books of 2023, but I'm not going to because I didn't hate it. I read it for the amusement, and the amusement is in fact what I got. Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. Ooh, this has a low rating of a 3.32. I gave it 3 stars. I agree that it was not memorable really. It was fine for what it was. It wasn't really anything special, but I also don't find it outright offensive, and I think that it has its audience, so I don't particularly agree with this being as low as this was. Made it to The Monster by Sarah Spade. This is exactly what I was expecting. I thought that a lot of the monster romances would be on this list just because of the subgenre that that's in, and that's being super niche. This has a average rating of 3.33, but I gave this book 4 stars. Do I fully remember it? No, but I remember he simped for her hard, and I liked the premise of this story. And also, this is a book that I DNF'd last year. I tried again this year and then really enjoyed. She accidentally summons a shadow demon, and they are now mated. It was a fun time for what it was, a fun, cozy monster romance. So no, I do not agree with this being the worst book of the year, according to this Goodreads list. Runtime by Catherine Ryan Howard has a rating of 3.43. I gave it a 3 star. This book was fine to me. There are definitely elements of it that I enjoyed, and upon reflection, I think I would actually give this a 3.5 stars. I'm not sure why this book would have such a low rating, aside from it being a little bit slow, a little bit boring, but that's it. Like, the action really picks up in the second half of the story. I don't know why this rating is so low. It feels pretty on par with most thrillers to me. The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. I'm not surprised to see this on this list because this book is so divisive. You either love it or you hate it. And listen, it's chaos, queer women. Be gay, do crime. That's what this is. And I loved it. NaNoWriMo, but make it murder. It was a fun time for what it was, and I think you either get it or you don't. The girlies who get it, get it. And I got it. The 6th book on this list is The Spite House by Johnny Compton with an average rating of 3.52. I gave this book 3 stars. It's a debut, and it did feel very debut-y. My issue with this book is that it never went far enough. It honestly always felt like something was going on, but a lot of the concepts and things that were actually happening were not fully explained or given reason. It was confusing to follow along with at times, and it was just a little bit boring because at no point does the author really give you something to feel invested in. Everything was touched on, but nothing was explored in depth, and that was my issue with this book. I don't think it was the worst, and I don't think it would go on that list because I didn't hate it, but it certainly was very debut-y and not the strongest book, which we can cut people some slack. Your first ever thing that you publish is not going to be fantastic, but sometimes it is. This would have been the book for me. It just needed some more. The Nanny by Lana Ferguson should honestly be lower on this list, not as high as it is. It has an average rating of 3.59. I gave this book 3 stars. My issue with it is that the whole she had an OnlyFan and he was her biggest OnlyFan really did not come up that often, and this book was so much of them fucking that I was like, at which point are they in love? At which point was I supposed to believe that they had feelings with each other when it seemed like they barely ever spoke 2 words to each other outside of the context of their jobs of she's his nanny and he's a chef, and they were talking about things related to that. I don't understand how they were in love, but I understand that at some point there was a deep emotional connection that happened before then, and I feel like that should have been explored more and should have had a bigger role in this story. And I hate to say it, but this book was weighed down by smut. I love smut, but it needed more character development and it needed more relationship development, not just steamy, sexy time. I'm shocked Sissy Ascension has such a low rating of 3.6, especially because this was nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards, which means it barely made the cutoff to get in here. I love this story. I gave it 4 stars. Technically, I would consider it a 5-star feeling, but technically I gave it 4 stars, perhaps because of the religious undertones in it. I can see why you wouldn't like this story because it is very bizarre. It is really strange, and there certainly are a lot of religious undertones. And much like The Writing Retreat, I'm gonna say you either get it or you don't. Sure, there could be valid criticisms of this book, but I was not reading this book, I say not that thoroughly, because that's not what I mean, critically. I was not reading this book critically. I was reading this book for the enjoyment of it, and the enjoyment I did get. So I would not actually put this on my worst books of the year. I would actually put it on my best. So I strongly do not agree with that. Then we have Our Last Echoes by Kate Alice Marshall, which has an average rating of 3.61, which I gave 3 stars. Here's the thing that pisses me off about this. Our Last Echoes and Rules for Vanishing are set in the same world. They're tied together, but nowhere is that explained, nowhere is that promoted. That's not in the summaries of it. So I've read this book out of order. I read Our Last Echoes before I read Rules for Vanishing, which means that I enjoyed these books equally, which is at a very, very low level, because ultimately I was hella fucking confused. In this book, we jump in with this girl who's already trying to find something out, this mystery of like how her mother disappeared, and then we get thrown into these creatures, which if you had read Rules for Vanishing, you would know who these creatures are, but because I hadn't, because it wasn't told to me that they're connected and that you should read one before the other, I didn't enjoy this. So yeah, I agree with this being on the worst books of the year. It was a confusing mess in my mind, but I'm not going to pin that on the author. I'm going to pin that on these 2 books not being properly marketed. Finally, Little Green Vines by Britt Andrews is my 10th lowest rated book of 2023 according to Goodreads, with an average rating of 3.63. This is a sapphic monster romance, and for that reason I give the book 4 stars. If you are a monster romance girly, you know just how difficult it is to find sapphic monster romances. They are almost always with a man and almost always involve some kind of breeding kink, but this one is sapphic, and we're following a woman who, you know, she's a little horny, she's gay, but she lives in this time period with like, she has to marry a man, and she's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that. So she goes into the forest when she's super horny and she's doing something that perhaps shows her leaning towards exhibitionism, and this forest fairy goddess thing sees her and decides that she is hers. She is hers. And the whole book is just them fucking. That's all it is. It is them bang, bang, banging, banging. This is erotica. And you either like the erotica aspect, or if you don't, I did. So it was 4 stars. All right, besties, and that is it. So those were the best and worst books I read in 2023 according to Goodreads. Again, I'm reading 30 books this month, so this will be very skewed, and my final best books of 2023 list and worst books of 2023 list, I have no doubt will look very different from what is in this video and what Goodreads says is my best and worst books of 2023. But as always, I hope that you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you are not already. I am posting a video every other day throughout the month of December, and I post a video every week throughout the year. I would love to have you stick around, but I'm going to see you the day after tomorrow. Bye!